Takelma, Shasta, Modoc, Klamath, and Umpqua peoples. We honor and acknowledge the traditional owners of the land we now call the United States. We recognize the Native American people's continuing connection to land, place, waters, and community. We pay our respects to their cultures, country, and elders, past, present, and emerging.
Thank you, Eva. At this time, the board members are provided the opportunity to amend the regular session agenda, or I can take a motion to approve the adoption of the agenda.
I move we approve the adoption of the agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Adoption approved. And the consent agenda, all items may be adopted by a single motion unless pulled for special consideration. So I'll take a motion at this time unless somebody would like to pull an item for conversation.
You want to take turns?
Sure. I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I second.
All in favor? All right. Consent agenda approved. Moving right along. And the most exciting part of the evening, Walker Elementary is here to give us school report, and we are super excited to hear from our Walker Wolves. I'm sure Rebecca is super bummed not to be here in person. Oh, she would give you a big wolf howl for sure.
I might anyway.
You'll do great.
Hi, good evening. My name is Tiffany Burns. I am the proud principal of Walker Elementary School, and we are thrilled to be here tonight to talk to you all. Brooke Johnson-Tygeson is our counselor and CDS at Walker, and Brooke and Kate Sullivan, our student advocate. Kate could not be here this evening. They have built this incredible program of Wolf Pack leaders at Walker School. This is the second year in the program. I'm not going to tell you too much about the program because our fantastic Wolf Pack leaders are going to tell you about the program. What I will share with you is that it's a huge priority at Walker School to build leaders and to really encourage leadership, to encourage role models, and to build belonging. And I personally think that leadership starts in elementary school. So we are finding all the opportunities that we can to provide leadership opportunities for our students. I'm going to pass it to Mrs. T.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for having us. My name is Brooke Tygeson. I've been a school counselor for 15 years. I'm really proud to be here at Walker. These students have worked really hard and are going to share a lot more to the program, but we've done peer mediation here at recess more for the 2 past years, and then Kate Sullivan had done a peer mediation program previous to me being there. So the students are learning not only mediation skills, and we go over those skills at a monthly meeting, but we also teach them Kelso's choices that then they're helping review with the younger kids out at our first recess. So we have 20 total 4th and 5th grade students that are peer mediators, and we have I think 8 here today, which is wonderful. Last year we had 26. And yeah, we're gonna hopefully add to our program and give them more responsibilities as time goes on. So I think to begin, Lincoln is, I'll do the first slide actually. If I did that right. There we go. I'll do the first slide, and basically this is just talking about that our peer mediators, our 4th and 5th graders, they fill out an application showing that they have an interest in helping younger students, along with agreeing to maintain good behaviors as well as keeping up on their schoolwork. And some of our students that are here right now have done it for 2 years, so they've worked really hard. All right, and I think the first person to speak is Lincoln, who's in 4th grade. Yeah. Yeah. You got
Hi, Lincoln. You're doing
Oops.
great.
I don't know what. Oh, here we go.
We are Wolfpack leaders and we help younger students with small problems. We use Kelso's choices to help the younger kids solve small problems. If there are big problems, we find an adult right away.
All right. Yeah, good job. This is not.
Wolfpack leaders do so many things around Walker. They create games or push younger students on the swings. Wolfpack leaders also walk students to the office, make Friday announcements, and help younger students find games to play at Walker.
Good job. Thank you. The next slide is Amelia's going to tell us.
Wolfpack leaders helped at the gumdrop shop this year by helping younger students wrap presents. Wolfpack leaders went into every class to introduce themselves and explain our kindness board by the library.
Awesome. So now we have a few students who have written something to share with you, kind of their experience about the program and like what they've learned. Some have some funny experiences, so they're going to share that now. Do we want to just go like that? Yeah. Come up. Okay.
Hello, my name is Zoe Strobridge, and I am a Wolfpack leader at Walker Elementary. I'm in 5th grade in Miss Van Z's class. When you're being a peer mediator, it's really fun because you get to work with your peers, you get responsibility, you get a lot of fun things, and it's also like an extra curriculum item, which is really nice. Peer mediation helps me by getting to play with and understand kids at my school and helps me with my younger siblings. I especially love it when kids I don't know come and say my name and want to hug, and then I feel like I'm just helping my school by just being a Wolfpack leader. I noticed ever since I put on my shirt and my lanyard that a lot of little kids started looking up to me, which is really nice. And I really felt like I had something to share with them.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Amelia. I'm in Miss Van Z's 5th grade class. I've been doing peer mediation for 2 years now, and when I started this program, I was in 4th grade and a little nervous, but I soon found out that the little kids looked up to us and we loved them as much as they loved us. My favorite part about peer mediation is connecting with the littles and helping them with small problems. One of my favorite memories during peer mediation was when a kinder student was having a hard time going back to her class after recess. I knew she loved cheetahs, so I asked if she wanted to have a cheetah race back to her classroom lineup area. It worked like a charm. She made it back to class happily. This is one of the reasons why I love peer mediation and want to keep doing it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Valentina. I'm in 5th grade in Ms. Van Z's class. I've been a Wolfpack leader for 2 years, and I love being a Wolfpack leader because it feels like I have at least some responsibility, and it also feels amazing when little kids are looking up to me. When I'm outside, I help with games like parachute, soccer, and play tag. I've really enjoyed playing with little kids, helping and working as a team.
Hi, I'm Kobe. I am also in Miss Van Z's 5th grade class. I've been a peer mediator for 2 years. It's very fun and I love helping kids. Sometimes it's hard though. Some kids will not listen.
True.
That's an understatement, But one time I was trying to start a parachute game, and the kid would not get out of the parachute. Another time, a kid took a football and just ran away. But overall, I have loved being a peer mediator. I have built connections with a lot of kids. Once a kid specifically tried to find me to help him with his problem. One kid greets me whenever I see him in the hallway. I've learned a lot being a leader. It taught me to be patient even when it's hard. And now I have established more meaningful connections with other kids.
Thank you, Toby. I think. Okay, we have one more.
Hi, I'm a kid at Walker Elementary in Miss Sinclair's class. I love being a Wolfpack leader. I used to not really like younger kids, but being a peer mediator really helped with that. I think everyone who is a peer mediator loves it. We meet every month to talk about it. Younger students look up to us and get to know us. We mostly get to play with them and it's really fun. I like how younger students think we're cool and they get to know us better. When I read the peer mediator stuff, it makes me feel noticed, and that's why I love being a peer mediator.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we had some other kids that aren't here, but we just thank you so much. If you have any questions for us or the students.
I love the peer mediators, and I love the honesty. Thank you.
Yes.
Going towards conflict is sometimes really hard, and I think you're all so brave to, take that on, especially with younger kids. You're learning such an important skill at such a young age. Mm-hmm. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you so much.
I have one important question, just because your facilities use. Did you get the football back?
Yes, we did. I forget exactly what it's called. It's used for a game. I just used the football. Basically, football with a weird thing attached to it.
So when you're faced with a small problem, what do you do?
We use these Kelso's choices, like if they're having trouble, it's like go to another game or talk it out and stuff like that.
And sometimes we'll usually we'll take the two students or the one student or how many students there are, kind of pull them aside and talk to them and kind of help them figure it out. And then if it gets fixed, then it's perfect. And then if it doesn't, then we can always get Miss T or another recess adult. Yeah.
Great. So you have those cards that you use that you can refer to?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
We wear them when we do it.
Uh-huh.
We
Nice.
also carry around a clipboard in case they want to look at it as well.
Oh, cool. Great.
And the clipboard has their mediation steps of how to start a mediation. They introduce themselves. They ask if the students would like them to help them solve a small problem, and then they go from there.
Nice.
I have a question. So now that you're peer mediators, have you ever used them off the playground with other friends?
Well, so actually our recess is from kindergarten to 5th grade. So sometimes it's funny because we'll be seeing a problem, but it's with a 3rd, 4th, or 5th grader. And so we go in and we'll solve a same kid age problem.
It works for everybody. It works.
As often as kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd.
Yes, that is true. I have noticed that.
Large person.
Being in the same class or grade makes it they already know you and they're gonna get in this way of, oh well, they did it because they know that you have responsibility or something like that.
I just want to say, I think you guys are some very eloquent kids for your age. I can say.
Agreed. I'm very proud of them. They work very hard.
I was not talking like that, and I think that the middle school and high school will be in good hands.
We'll be on the lookout for them. Yep.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Yeah, take it back.
If I missed it.
Thank you.
All right, now it's time for our recurring reports. And we have the AHS student presidents here to give us an update.
Yeah, so to start off, we had our talent show since last board meeting. It went well. It was a little bit funny. We had a bunch of acts sign up right at the last minute, so it was a little bit of a rush. But I will say it made it a lot more exciting, and I think it went pretty well. Everybody had a good time. Yesterday, the Asian Student Union hosted their Lunar New Year celebration. They got food from Panda Express and played some music and to bring in the new Lunar New Year. We are in semester 2 now, obviously, and we had our finals week, and during finals week, leadership class helped set up a bunch of fun games so that people would have time. People who have time in between finals at school have stuff to do. In addition, we had National Guard come. They brought an obstacle course and another inflatable game for students to use, and we had APD handing out donuts on one of the days. So there was plenty for students to do, and I heard back from a lot of students that it was the most fun week they'd had at school in a while. So I think it was definitely worth a lot. During Black History Month, we've had BSU highlighting important Black historical figures, both in the announcements and on the high school Instagram. And they're just doing a lot to get word out and help celebrate it.
Yeah, I just want to say one more thing about the finals week. When we were passing out pancakes on one of the days, I heard one of the kids say, "Finals week is the best," which warmed my heart because that's not often the attitude around finals week, and I really just love to hear that it made it a little bit less stressful in a time that can be really stressful for a lot of people. But other things going on, our leadership class is currently in the beginning stages of planning a benefit ball to hopefully fundraise for our class competition prize, which is TBD in terms of what it is. But it's hopefully just a fundraiser with good food and drink and some silent auctions. Tonight we have our senior night for wrestling, and our culinary program just had a partnership with the Ashland Food Co-op to raise money. It was a round-up program. I'm not sure the dollar amount that they raised, but I heard it was pretty successful. And we're currently celebrating our Counselor Week, which is our appreciation for our counselors who do so much for us.
Awesome. Thank you. And the AEA report.
Yeah, thanks for the reminder about the Counselor Appreciation Week, Hank. Big shout out to all of our counselors and to ASD for prioritizing mental health through counseling services. Everybody got reports in, so it's pretty robust this month. Ashland Connect wants to welcome 7 new students to their program for semester 2, so welcome to all those folks. Francisco Atanas is the new administrator and has been supportive and engaged, attending many of the IEP 504 abbreviated day and initial meetings to support students and families, and the teacher, Amanda Groover, so a big shout out to him. There is some concern and curiosity around the decision to move Ashland Connect back to Trails next year after the program was moved to Walker earlier this year due to space issues, particularly while decreasing the FTE of the principal position there. So they are looking forward to learning more about this and about the decisions that are affecting students, many of whom are highly impacted and depend on predictability and stability, as well as viable alternative education choices in order to stay in enrolled in the Ashland School District. AHS said finals week is over and second semester is in full swing. Teachers and students are on cruise control for the time being, which is a good thing. We also still have many of our teachers who packed and moved over the winter holiday, advocating for equitable pay because they prioritized instruction and spent their time over winter break unpacking and preparing for students. Ashland Middle School, on February 16th, they'll be hosting guest speaker Dr. Geneva Craig. She took part in the 1963 march from Selma to Alabama to protest for the voting rights of African American citizens. The whole school is pre-teaching the events surrounding the march to prepare for her visit, and the Brain Bowl team continues to compete against other middle schools in the Valley, and the wrestling season is underway. February is Empathy Month, and classrooms are doing lessons and activities around empathy. The Latino Student Union is collecting children's book to donate to schools to help foster language practice for our English language learners. The Kiwanis-sponsored Builders Club is currently aiming to raise $1,200 for the Sandy Hook Promise organization by selling concessions at upcoming girls basketball games. And it's linked on the Ashland School District website if anybody's interested in contributing to that. The Super Bowl canned food drive is currently happening, where students and staff can donate canned non-perishable food in the San Francisco 49ers box or the Kansas City Chiefs box. We'll see which team has the most generous followers at AMS, so lots of great stuff happening there as well. The Bellevue Bobcats are busy celebrating and honoring famous Black figures in our world. Each day a staff and student is announcing on the loudspeaker about who they are learning about in their classroom. It's been so fun to hear all the different voices of Bellevue. The staff attended a budget presentation on Monday and are anxious and concerned about how the cuts next year will impact the quality of education due to drastic proposals to cut staff that work directly with students each day. Hellman Dragons have been enjoying winter field trips to Mount Ashland, the ice skating rinks, senior centers, Lithia Park, and the Ashland Pond. The community enjoyed a talent show with over 50 acts. What a talented bunch. There are a lot of big feelings surrounding next year's staff reductions and the current budget predicament. How have we gotten where we are? Oregon Battle of the Books is underway, and Dragon readers are loving it. We have conference days coming up. Luke Hogan Lawrenson, big shout out to Luke and his mom, Jane Hogan, came to Hellman to pass along a really amazing and powerful message about inclusion, perseverance, and dreaming big, and had the dragons memorized. We've got the Lego Club, Sir Optimus Strong Girls, Strong Women, the PTA Storytelling Night with Matt Damon, and Bingo Night coming up in February. So open invitation for everybody to any of those events. Trail students have enjoyed field trips to Shasta Nordic Center, Mount Ashland, and the older grades are heading out on a winter overnight later this week. We're starting a new school-wide unit this month on light and sound, and the younger grades are celebrating the 100th day of school with a Read for Change event where students will be reading books and asking for sponsors from their families to raise money that they'll be donating to local organizations. This is part of our social justice unit. This week, all teachers participated in Data Day and had lots of growth to celebrate about. Staff and families were notified last week that Trails principal FTE is going to be decreased next year. This has caused a lot of conversation around safety and how this decision is best for students. Our staff is hoping to move forward collaboratively with the district to come to the best solution for our school. Walker Wolves. February is a busy month for Walker. Our awesome Black Student Union has been preparing for our Black History Assembly, and our amazing Wolfpack leaders have been helping our younger students at recess to connect and solve problems. A big shout out to them. O-Bobbers are reading and preparing for their Battles of the Books competitions, and we're looking forward to an all-school field trip to SODU to watch a women's basketball game, where our choir will be performing the national anthem. We're meeting with grade level teams and specialists to review and celebrate student growth data and brainstorming how to meet all of the needs of all of our students with the reality of upcoming budget and staffing cuts. At Willow Wind, there's lots of good stuff happening right now. Grades K-5 have all been focusing on forces and motion in science. Kinders and first graders are working on push and pull scenarios and experiments, and grades 2 to 3 have been engaged in engineering and design, with simple machines culminating in a 4+ step Rube Goldberg objective, how to pass an eraser. 4th and 5th grade students are exploring Newton's laws and thinking about how they apply in everyday activities. Upper school students have been busy with science units, and 6th graders are finishing a unit on photosynthesis and cellular respiration, with 7th and 8th graders learning about plate tectonics. All students are involved in activities for Black History Month, some inspiring biography, literature studies. Willow and staff are quite concerned about potential budget cuts and how students, families, and staff will be impacted. How can budget cuts, if needed, be administered in a thoughtful, transparent, creative, and equitable manner? Teachers and EAs are the most common targets for cuts, but when thinking about the many academic, social, and emotional needs of students who are still reeling from the effects of COVID and are very much in need of support, we're hoping other creative solutions can be generated. So in line with that, the union just wanted to add that this is the largest avoidable financial crisis the Ashland School District has faced. We were blindsided by SB 819, but declining enrollment, the loss of ESSER funding, nutrition services debt, increased insurance costs, and overhiring were all predictable and budgetable. Members are very grateful for the site-based budget updates and also frustrated that the district knew all of this in October and yet waited until February to talk to staff and ask for ideas. Teachers are concerned and frustrated at the projected loss of programs and the impacts to students and staff. The vast majority of Oregon school districts dealt with declining enrollment at the same time that they were given ESSER funds, yet they're not in this dire financial crisis that Ashland is in. When cut days, cut programs, and staff layoffs are on the table, we are in a financial predicament. Even though employees didn't make the financial decisions that put the district in this dilemma, many of the suggested cost-saving measures essentially require employees to pay for the district's mistakes. My personal hope is that we are as honest and transparent with families and community members as possible so that we can work together to preserve programs. Echoing the board's call to action last month, I did email Ashland School Foundation's Nutrition Services and Leadership asking for a unified message and advocacy here. Good news, ASF is working with the Rotary on student lunch debt forgiveness. So, my kindergartners always say it starts with 1 penny, and teamwork makes the dream work. We are in a financial crisis. We have a roof that's caving in, and we are cutting staff. We need everyone's help and support to keep our district thriving, not just surviving. We should take accountability for errors, truly collaborate with staff to find solutions, and partner with our community to follow through with our commitment to our students. Thank you.
Thank you, too. Now we have our update from OSEA.
Howdy, thank you. Stephen Essig, OSEA School Board Rep. This month, OSEA Chapter 42 celebrates Black History Month. This month, labor leaders have celebrated and highlighted the heroic efforts of Black Americans in our collective and shared struggle for liberation. The Poor People's Campaign, a product of incredible organizing by MLK and leader Robert Abernathy, asked the nation to stop the attention to violence that refuses to see injustices and acknowledge the human and economic cost of inequality. OSCA Chapter 42 shares that sentiment and actively fights for that here in our community through our union organizing and education of collective struggle. Many of our classified employees, especially those most affected by the reduction in force that's going to be presented tonight, have suffered under this economy and struggled to make ends meet as it is. Last month, I spoke on January being Poverty in America Awareness Month and hoped to raise awareness for the lunch debts burdened by our students. This month, the district sent balance statements out to all families and our staff to collect that debt. Along with those statements, many of my colleagues have begun receiving notices from their landlords that their rent will increase for the year in line with the 14% maximum increase that the state determined would be in line with inflation profits. So last bargaining, we got a 3% raise. This discrepancy in rent and pay alone has led to many of my colleagues having to moonlight with second or even third jobs. This whole situation has caused a massive amount of stress and anxiety across all sites that affects our classified staff the most. With that, OSCA Chapter 42 would like to also extend our gratitude to school counselors who are a great ear to students and staff who are struggling and need guidance, whether that be as school counselors in their role and the students who are classified staff have families, or as friends and colleagues in the community. We love our school counselors. Thank you.
Thank you. Now it's time for board reports. I'm going to let Rebecca start tonight with board report.
All right, hi everybody. So I'm just going to be very brief here, as I know I disclosed last month. I'm taking some time away from Ashland, so I've been up here in Portland for almost 3 weeks now, and it's been quite a roller coaster, but I just want to let everybody know we're in a positive phase here, and we should be back by the end of next week, so that's good news. I also want to take ownership of the perception that there was going to possibly be a public vote and announcement tonight on the superintendent selection. So I'm sorry for those of you who read that. This has been a very exciting and very exhaustive process for all of us, as I'm sure you can appreciate. We are in final contract negotiations, and I will let Jill speak a little bit more to that, but I just want to let you know that vote and the public announcement will be happening within the next 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan, you want to go next?
Sure, thank you. I'm currently in Portland for a student success conference and enjoying it. And I just want to echo what Rebecca was saying, which is that the search process has been very thorough and intense and wonderful. And so I look forward to when we can talk about that.
Sure. Yeah, so I'm very much looking forward to talking about the end of our superintendent search, and very excited about that. And the board has put in a lot of time, and gosh, we've worked so hard. So it's great appreciation to the board for all of the work that's happened to get to this point. And then just innovation committee work. So, and Marissa has got to tell us that the math club came in second place in a regional competition. Yay. Woohoo. So I learned that in our innovation committee meeting the other night. But yep, those are the main things that have been on my plate.
Same, and I'll add to the superintendent search is that it's been a real privilege to work with everyone. It's been a deep process, and I'm hopeful that I'm excited for the results. Beyond that, our counting innovation committee has met, and we are closing in on a final timeline for deliverables to the board, like to have an actual presentation of all of the research that's been gathered, and then also some more resources were the board to choose to do anything, were the district to choose to do anything on timelines for how that might look for implementation and communication and so on. So we're excited to be in the final stretch.
Awesome. Let's see. So we have been so busy, all of us, not just with superintendent work, but just at different sites. I was meeting with the PTC, Site Council at Trails. Also, we had innovation subcommittee meetings. Those have been moving forward. Dan and I also went to the legislative update at the Phoenix Talent High School, which was great. Jeff Golden was there along with some other representatives, so we got to kind of share our concerns and needs. And lastly, I just wanted to say, I know this must be challenging for staff to be kind of in this in-between space while you're waiting for this kind of final announcement. And I just wanted to offer just some comfort in that the people you see up here and on the screen, this was a really hard decision. There were tears, there was loss of sleep, there was really intense, hard conversations. And everyone up here, I can say with integrity, understands the magnitude of this decision and took it very seriously. And we did the hard work, and so we look forward to making that announcement when the time is right. So, our student board reports.
So
We attended the OSBA Southern Region Legislators Reception, which was just, the meeting amongst school boards from around varying districts, and then some state legislators, which was especially interesting for the representatives because we got to talk to and meet the Phoenix High School representatives and kind of compare and contrast, get their insight on how their whole student rep situation has been and how they decide that, which was actually really insightful and super beneficial. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have been going to the bond meetings, and it's been really interesting to learn about the process and see the state of the humanities building at the moment, which is quite different than how I saw it last year, but it's really exciting. And we have plans to talk to our Black Student Union about the SRO and have a conversation with them about their opinions and how they think it should be gone about, right, if it happens.
Awesome. Well, we were so proud to have you guys there, I must say. Dan and I it was so great to have you at the legislative meeting, and I'd love to hear.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for coming. I know it was late, so thank you. All right, so now is the time to hear from our public. The Ashland School District Board of Directors reserves this time for individuals to relay comments in writing to the board regarding topics not on the printed agenda. I just want to acknowledge we did receive some public comment through email. The board fully reads those. We received 2 emails from Flavia Franco and Magdalena Winter on composting. And we also received an email from the Trails PTC with over 100 parent signatures, and we have read all of those public comments. Okay, so I'm going to go in the order that they were submitted. Russell is going to time each public speaker. So Margaret Spring. Hey, Margaret. If you can just state your name, you don't need to state your address, just what city you live in.
Okay, hi. Margaret Spring, Ashland. I have a daughter at Trails. All right, and this is reiterating what the letter that was sent by our PTC and really the budget concerns raised by both the classified and EA presentations. So as parents of Trails Outdoor School and members of the Ashland School District community, we believe in our schools and want them to thrive. We send our kids to Trails because it's the right fit for them. Trails uniquely blends classroom discovery with outdoor learning, fostering resilient, engaged students deeply connected to their environment. The school's ethos, cultivating independent learners who give back, relies on strong leadership. A principal at Trails, and any of the other schools in our district, is an essential part of the school community. Their leadership, guidance, and expertise provide stability for our students and hardworking staff. The principal position has been part-time at the John Muir School. Families present then share that this led to instability and unsustainable environment. Discipline and safety issues were unaddressed, staff was overburdened, and students were left without the support they deserved. Fallout from COVID, emerging social safety and mental health concerns have expanded the responsibility a principal must provide our schools. Managing a facility still in development, putting safety protocols in place, supporting in-class instructions, setting student and staff expectations, establishing training and professional development plans, overseeing IEPs, supporting students most in need. These are critical areas our administrator needs to actively develop, monitor, and improve. Please do not halt our hard-won progress in this area. Trails is a smaller school, but it has to comply with the regulatory standards to the same degree, requiring significant planning and active leadership. Trails is a Title I school and has the highest percentage of families that fall near the poverty line. How will we ensure this Title I school has the proper supports when an administrator? Okay.
Thank you.
Can I just one more sentence?
Sure.
Okay. Without a full-time principal, the safety, physical, and mental health and emotional well-being of students is at risk. We believe in our school. We believe in Principal Beck Bratton and the progress she has led. We believe in our district leadership and in you, our school board, the stewards and champions of our students and community. Together, let's find a solution that ensures Trails, like our other stellar schools, is set up to thrive.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Becky DeSalvo.
Hi, I'm Becky DeSalvo. I live in Ashland, Oregon. Thank you all for your dedication to our schools, our students, and our staff. I want to start off by saying that I am excited that the science department is getting a remodel. It has not had an upgrade since the building was completed in January of 1969. Between November 27th and December 15th, I put in 56 hours of outside of my contract time to pack up my classroom and additional science storage rooms at AHS. Very little of what I packed were personal items. It was almost all district-owned science supplies and teaching materials. On Saturday, December 16th, I spent 10 hours unpacking into my classroom at Lincoln with 3 great students who spent 5 of those hours helping me. Administrators were at Lincoln on Saturday. They were expecting us. They provided breakfast snacks and lunch as we unpacked. I appreciated those gestures of support. On January 1st, I spent 10 more hours unpacking additional boxes that got moved on December 18th into my classroom so I could be ready to teach the next day. In my 23 years working at Ashland High School, I have never felt more stress as I did during those weeks. Now the district is refusing to acknowledge that we had to unpack during winter break. There is no other time I could have unpacked. I taught at Ashland High School on December 15th and then the very next school day at Lincoln. I am not sure how I could have taught an AP physics class at 8:30 in the morning on Monday if I had not come in during my winter break to unpack. Each time the district repeats that we were not required to unpack over break, I feel disrespected, undervalued, and demoralized. The lack of acknowledgement at the district level is appalling. I don't believe the district understands what they are doing to teacher morale by refusing to pay us our contract rate for unpacking. Hellman teachers got paid per the MOA at their contract rate for working over a weekend. We are not asking for much. In fact, to pay us all, the difference between our committee rate and our contract rate is barely over $1,000 for all of us. The fact that the district is unwilling to acknowledge our commitment to our students is like a smack in the face.
And that's time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tammy Anderson. Just state your name and where you're from.
My name is Tammy Anderson. I live in Ashland. I'm also a math teacher at Ashland High School. In the Ashland School District's strategic plan, Goal 3 states, create and maintain a safe, welcoming, supportive, and inclusive environment for all students and staff. I am one of 7 AHS staff members whose classrooms were recently relocated from the second floor of the Humanities and Science Building across the street to Lincoln. The furniture and the majority of the contents of my classroom were moved to Lincoln Friday, December 15th, the last day of school before winter break, and Saturday, December 16th. In order to create a safe, welcoming, and inclusive environment for my students, I spent a few days of my winter break unpacking and setting up my classroom. I had no choice but to work over winter break. Otherwise, my students would have returned on January 2nd to complete chaos. I would not do that to my students because I'm a professional and because it is not in line with the Ashland School District's goals. I am grateful that I was paid for the time I spent working over break. However, in all fairness, the time I spent working during my vacation should have been compensated at my contract rate rather than the committee rate. Our contract essentially states that any work required outside of normal contract hours, other than non-professional duties like dance chaperones or district committee work, shall be paid at the contract rate. Apparently, the superintendent does not think we were required to work outside of normal contract hours, but it is so obvious that we were, given the timeline of the move. My colleagues and I worked very hard to honor the district's goal of providing a safe and welcoming environment and supportive, inclusive environment for all of our students. It is frustrating to me that the district is not doing the same. Recall, the goal of providing a supportive environment extends to students and staff. I believe I speak for myself and my colleagues when I say we are not feeling supported in this situation. Thank you for your time and attention and all the work you do on behalf of the entire Ashland School District community.
Thank you. Marissa Watson.
Marissa Watson, Medford. Good evening, members of the school board and community. My name is Marissa Watson, and I stand before you today as a dedicated math teacher at our high school. As someone who is required to relocate over winter break, I feel compelled to address an issue that has deeply troubled me. It is with great disappointment and frustration that I bring to your attention the matter of compensation, a topic that no one likes to discuss. Despite my 12 years of service, I find it insulting that the district has chosen to not pay me at my contract rate for the work I performed over winter break. This is a significant difference in pay. I want to emphasize that I made every effort not to work over winter break. However, despite all my planning, I was unable to achieve this goal due to circumstances out of my control. While most of my classroom was packed and ready to relocate by Friday, December 8th, a full week before the end of school, with the goal of unpacking the last week before break. I reached out to Rebecca for assistance in moving my boxes. Despite her acknowledgement of my request, the boxes were not relocated until after December 15th. It is my belief that the movers were overwhelmed, possibly due to the influx of boxes from the science department, and they could not get to the boxes in the math department. Despite my best efforts, I left for the holiday break, knowing that my new classroom remained unpacked, leaving me with no choice but to work over winter break, which should have been a period of rest and rejuvenation. Furthermore, I'd like to address the issue of unpaid time spent packing our department shared space. We have one room full of supplies and math manipulatives that needed to be packed and moved. I asked to be paid 4 hours of packing and 4 hours of unpacking. It took me about 10 hours to pack this space. Regrettably, my request for an additional 8 hours of pay was denied. I got paid $0 for this amount of time. In conclusion, I must express my disappointment and sense of disrespect by the lack of consideration shown by our superintendent in handling these matters. As educators, we dedicate ourselves wholeheartedly to the betterment of our students and our school community, and it is disheartening to feel undervalued, underpaid, and overlooked in return.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's time for a superintendent update.
Okay, thank you. Probably a few different things to chat about tonight. I think the first piece is that I'm trying to find the dates on it. March 4th through 8th this year, we celebrate our classified staff and the amazing work that they do. For folks that don't understand what our classified staff do, that really runs a huge range from bus drivers to office support staff, to our IT staff, to front office staff, to classroom support staff in the regular classrooms, special education support staff, youth advocates, graduation coaches, and several other really key positions, and we're incredibly reliant on them. We'll talk a little bit more about budget here in a little bit, but I think one of the things that we know and part of the heart and soul of our schools is our classified staff. And so once a year we take time to really acknowledge that, and so what I would ask the board to do is to declare March 4th through 8th Classified Staff Recognition Week, and there's a very long memorandum there to allow you to do that. But I think we want to remember these folks and be conscious of them, not just one day, 1 week a year, but throughout the year, because their contribution is really phenomenal. So I would love for the board to take action on that item.
Do I have a motion?
I move that the board proclaims, supports, I'm not sure am I missing any? Oh, sorry. Okay. I move to approve the resolution honoring and celebrating the Ashland School District's classified employees the week of March 4th through 8th, 2024.
I second.
You take down on that one?
Yeah. All right.
All in favor?
Aye. Thank Thank you. And each of our sites typically does celebrations for those folks. Our maintenance folks do a little bit of something in their departments, as do our custodial and transportation and IT and all of the folks that help keep us up and running with kids. Wanted to share a few different things today. One, about 2 weekends ago, we had invited down John Michael Keyes, who is one of the founders of the I Love You Guys Foundation, for a training that was jointly proposed and jointly hosted by Ashland School District, Eagle Point School District, and the Eagle Point Police Department. And even on a Saturday, we probably had in the order of 100 folks. Almost all of our administrative team was there on their own time to really work and understand some of these pieces that we are taking in terms of how we respond to a variety of emergency situations. Also there was Kelly Burns, the city's Director of Emergency Operations, and several folks from Ashland Police and from a number of the other agencies and school districts in the area. The real power of this particular training and the particular standard response protocol is that we're all on the same page when it comes to potential crisis, whether that be a cougar on campus, a fire, or whatever that might be. So much so that the city of Ashland and higher ed institutions like Southern Oregon University are also adopting similar protocols. So that was really a unique opportunity to have down here on a Saturday, and we're just really grateful to the folks that showed up and participated in that. The AHS bond projects are underway, and I am incredibly grateful to the folks that were involved in that move and touched here by some of the things that were shared here tonight. When I look at the body of all of the work that our teachers have done throughout the bond, we looked at packing and unpacking and wanting to provide equity there, where we had teachers give themselves at every site and worked really hard to support them, and I think I would want to honor all of them as we have. I had kind of hoped tonight that I wouldn't have to be at the board meeting because I did want to be at the wrestling meet, which is going on against Crater over at the middle school tonight, but I'm happy to be here. The last piece I really wanted to talk about, and we've talked about this at the board beginning last fall and a few different times, and most recently last month at last month's board meeting, and folks can go back onto the website and download that presentation and get that information or watch the video. But for folks that are just kind of becoming familiar with this, in 1920, prior to COVID, we were at about 2,850 students or thereabouts. We've since dropped about 300 students. 100 students is roughly the equivalent of $1 million. So those 300 students equate to about $3 million. We are, in fact, a smaller district than we once might have been. There are several reasons that fed into that. One is declining enrollment in general, and the state of Oregon has actually experienced over COVID about an 11,000 student reduction in public school enrollments for a variety of reasons. Some of our loss of enrollment was due to COVID and some of the challenges there, and we've seen a little bit of bounce back from that. A good chunk of it was due to the loss of open enrollment, which was a law that previously allowed people to come into the district as long as we had space without seeking permission from the resident district. That ended in 1819, and slowly those students have been moving out. Now, under COVID, we had some dollars that protected us at the times that we needed it most, at the times that we needed the richest staffing to serve kids, the richest staffing to be able to space kids apart, the richest staffing to be able to, once we're out of COVID, to be able to do some of the incredible work that our teachers have done, seeing some of our kids who spent a year out of school or a year on online school, out of the normal rhythm of things, being able to catch up and in many cases make double or even triple digit gains back towards their academics. Part of what has allowed us to do that was additional federal ESSER dollars and additional dollars from the state that just kind of stabilized things for 2 years. We're now at a point where those dollars are gone. We did overspend a little bit, but not as dramatically as $3 million in that arena. And so now we are at a place where what we have to do is recognize we're a district of 2,500 or 2,550, and we have to appropriately resource at every level. That really does impact all employee groups. And so the first place that we started for that was looking at district office administration. And we reduced district office administration by one administrator and put all of those duties out. I've taken some, other positions, administrative positions have taken some, and so we've been able to add on, by increasing workload effectively, we've been able to reduce a singular position. There are two other administrative cuts that we've made, and each one of these hurts, right? They're tough. One of those is a 0.4 cut at the Trails principal position. And so we had a fabulous principal there this year, Erica Beck-Broughton, who was temporary so that we could go through a formal hiring process. In going out for that new process, that position will be a 0.6. Part of the reason for that is the school has 140 students. Now we know that a school that works outdoors, any school, needs support throughout the day. So we are working on those supports, but they may not come in the form of an administrator that's on site. But we know that we need to address that and make sure that that's working for that site. The other administrative position was a reduction from 4 administrators at the high school to 3, where we've taken the role of our athletic director, who's fabulous, and we have decided not to renew that position and instead have transferred those duties and figured out other ways to support our athletics and activities department. So we've begun that hard work that's going to continue throughout the spring. We're in dialogue around those issues and absolutely have staff feedback and opportunity for that, and are engaging currently with staff by visiting each of the sites to get their thoughts and ideas on what's most impactful. I would characterize it as really appropriately resourcing. We have had significantly reduced class sizes through COVID and really into this current year. And that has allowed for some of the additional resources to really work with kids to regain some of the things that they lost in terms of connection, in terms of academics throughout COVID. And we've seen the results of that. But the reality is we are a smaller district and we have to adjust the size. So I tend to think of it, we think of budget cuts because we feel each of these things, right? But the reality is, in my thinking, is we're really just shaping our district to be able to make sure we continue and maintain an excellent education for kids K-12 with a variety of options and things that are good for kids and good for families, and continue to lead moving into the years to come. To do that, we need to be fiscally responsible and adjust the actual enrollment that we have, and that's the process that we're going through. Those challenges are tough, those decisions are tough. We do them thoughtfully and we do them with engagement. And that's the work that we're engaging in this spring. I tremendously value both our employee organizations and the hard work that they do and what they bring to the table. We're also negotiating new contracts with both of those organizations this year, which impacts how we budget and how we move forward. So we will continue to come forward to the board and to share and continue to engage with staff throughout this spring as we work on the budget for next year. So, any questions?
Thank you, Sam. Okay, capital bond report. Steve and Mike.
I'm going to see if I can find it, Jeff.
While Mike is navigating that, I will say thank you again for having us, Dan and Becca. I can't see you, but I'm assuming you're on the other side of the TV screen there.
She's waving at you.
Yep, good. I'm glad to hear you're coming home soon. Tonight we're going to give you a bond update. I believe it's for January. And then we will have an additional amendment. As you recall, we've siloed out this entire project here at the high school. This is the Amendment 5, and is really focused on the bulk of the work in the science building. So we will we'll present that to you. We really wanted to bring that to you in the work session last month, but we felt we needed to sharpen our pencils and spend a few more weeks on that. And we're really glad that we did. I think we've made some progress, and we have a very clear understanding of our path forward, so we're going to present that to you tonight. And then just right on the horizon, just so you're aware, we will be moving right into what we call the alphabet soup, which is everything else at the high school. So you have the humanities building and the science building, and then all the other buildings had letters, so we just called it alphabet soup. So we'll be turning that around pretty quick here, and hopefully within the next month we'll be bringing another amendment to you to get the rest of that work under contract. So without further ado, we'll jump into the bond update for January, and then we'll present Amendment 5.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Again, this kind of is more of a high school update, but work there's coming along great. Everything's progressing well. They're well into. It's very loud. Sorry, guys. Try to get the right volume here. Yeah, so they're first and second floor of the humanities building, working through the seismic upgrades. In addition to that, they're starting to rough in all of the mechanical, electrical, plumbing upgrades throughout the building. The new bathrooms that are attached to the new elevator core are roughed in at this point, so all the pipes are in for the water, sewer, electrical, fire sprinklers. Those are moving along well. Fire alarm system is being installed. So as far as the humanities building goes, they're moving along great. A lot of the structural steel that you've seen going up on the exterior walls, as well as kind of on the interior of the building, that'll all get poured back with concrete. Currently planning to do that over the spring break, because we can kind of have the least amount of impact, and it's a significant amount of work to do. So that is at the humanities building. Over at the science building, again, it's kind of, we're bringing the amendment to you guys to open up the rest of the work there. We're kind of at a standstill right now from the demo and abatement standpoint. With the approval of this amendment, that'll open up the science portion of that building, which is phase 1, to start the construction over there, with installation of mechanical, electrical, plumbing upgrades, new finishes, kind of new lighting, modernization of the science classrooms. So hoping to move into that. And as Steve mentioned, we have the remainder of the projects. Those documents were available today. They're going out to bid immediately with the hopes that we'll be able to come to you in the March session for approval on that GMP amendment as well. Any questions on what was in the kind of board and the month update? As far as the other projects, those are essentially wrapped up. We have a couple of warranty walks. It's part of what we'll do with kind of the local staff here. We'll bring back the contractors and the architects and walk through both Hellman, Walker, and the middle school to observe and capture any deficiencies over the last year, to make sure those are taken care of within the warranty period. So.
We also have the transformer should be here any day now for the solar array. So once that gets installed, we'll have a ribbon cutting, and we're going to have a flip the switch day. So we're going to invite the school board to come out, and we'll have some students out there, and probably some community members that have some interest in a sustainable approach to generating power. And we'll have a big flip the switch and start pumping that power from the solar array into the trails building. And so that's right on the horizon here. It's been a few months. I've been anxious to get that project wrapped up. So that should be here in the next few weeks, I'm hoping. We'll let you know.
Right. Yeah, definitely we're celebrating. All right.
Can I add one more thing about the amendments? I think that the one thing I want to say in this next alphabet soup amendment we're going to bring to you is that once we get that amendment across the table, we should be dang near under contract for the entire project. And so what that allows us to do is really start honing in on that schedule of what it's going to look like for the next year to wrap those pieces up. And then it also gives us a chance to start looking at the risk that we have left on that project in terms of dollars and cents. So I'm anxious to get that last amendment across the board so that we can really see where we're at. And we have a good idea, but until we get those projects under contract, we won't know for sure. So That's
So
right on the horizon, and that'll
Part
be
of
a
me
huge
is like
bonus.
hoping that there's some magical amount of money left over, but who knows, right? Okay.
Yep, we've done our best for 4 years, so we'll see.
Okay, great.
And I can say before we kind of make the formal ask here as far as the high school budget goes, we are tracking on budget. So this last GMP came in where we really anticipated it to be based on a lot of estimating exercises to make sure we're on track. Of course, there were some value engineering exercises and some redesign that took place through the course of it to make sure we could get all of the kind of bond promise within what was budgeted for the high school. But what's left after this amendment, we feel pretty comfortable going into that final package or alphabet soup package as Steve referred to it, based upon some rough order of magnitude costs that we've gotten from the contractors. So we now have the final documents in hand. We'll be able to put together an estimate, and of course those are going out to bid immediately, so we'll get the actual realized costs. But to date, I can say we are tracking on budget for the high school. So with that, that moves us into our
Mike, when you say, sorry to interrupt you, but when you say tracking on budget,
yeah,
like from when?
So this would be really the last budget that I want to say it was probably November of last year.
Okay.
It's the budget that we approved for the high school, the operating budget that we've been working on for just over a year now. So
not the original.
Not the original.
Right.
We would be way over the original. So thankfully, we were able to move some dollars into this project, and really that was the impetus for actually lifting our finger out the pause button, was moving those dollars in there, saying we know we're going to pay more for this particular project based on inflation and everything else that's going on in the world. So, but that was established, I want to say over a year ago, 14 months ago.
Yeah.
And was presented to the board then to lift off the pause and start this project. So we've been working against that dollar amount since then.
Okay.
So that's when we say against the budget or we're tracking, that's what we're comparing to.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. All right, and with that, presenting GMP Amendment 5. So this is reflective of the entirety of the science building package. So we've already moved ahead on Dam 1 abatement there. So this is really the remainder of the package to complete the science building. The science bid package came in at $7,189,225.09, based upon previous not to exceed sums of $12,019,164.40. That would bring the new contract total to $19,393,149.49. So with that, we're asking the board to take action to award the CNBC GMP Amendment 5 for Ashland High School Science Package to KNCC and Outlier, or also informally known as KNO. So.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Any questions?
Any questions?
No.
Okay. I move to approve the GMP Amendment 5 for the science bid project to KNCC Outlier LLC for the not to exceed sum of $7,189,225.09. For a total not to exceed the contract sum of $19,393,149.49.
I second.
I think the second has to repeat all the numbers.
One more time, yeah.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Did we get 2 thumbs up here?
Yes.
Very good. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you. And Hank, thank you and the team for joining us. It's been nice having the students there. I think as much as it's probably a lot of lingo and some jargon, you get a sense of the effort and the work that goes into making these decisions, and it's nice having students sitting at the table and experiencing that as we go. So thank you for that.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Again.
I'm so curious about the 9 cents.
I was thinking that too. Where's that
We
going
really
to
need to
go?
dive into that, yeah. All right. Looks like Jackie's getting PowerPoint set up for Ashland High School presentation from Ben Bell. Is that right?
Yes.
Ben, it's your time.
All right, thank you for having us here this evening. My name is Benjamin Bell. I'm the principal at Ashland High School. And I think it's fitting for Counselor Appreciation Week that we have this topic. So we're happy to come in and highlight and share some of the supports that we have in place to support student mental health. And so with me, I have one of our amazing counselors, Robert Joe, and Assistant Principal Becca Leroy, who oversees the counseling department. And so we've organized the presentation in terms of MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support. So we'll kind of run through each tier and share with you what those supports look like right now in the high school in terms of things we have in place, and then some things that are being built out right now. So I'm going to turn it over.
Yep, most of you have already heard that acronym before, MTSS. So just to reiterate what he said, we're talking about how mental health specifically fits into that multi-tiered systems of support. So as many of you know, Tier 1 are just the supports that are in place for every student, accessible to all. It's that universal design, what we have for everybody. And then as we move up the line to Tier 2, those are some more intensive supports that might look like, specific groups of students, whether that's grade level or students who are experiencing a certain mental health issue. We can have small groups type of thing. And then the Tier 3 support is going to be our most intensive, that the fewest students need, but that we put the most resources towards. So just starting off with Tier 1, and Robert and I are going to take turns talking about this, but we have 3 counselors, 2.5 FTE with those 3 counselors, and Robert's going to talk a little bit about the services that our counseling department provides, because not everybody knows what that looks like under the ASCA model.
Hi, I'm Robert Joe again, some of my wonderful students here. Happy to be here just talking about some of the supports that we have in place. Is it too loud? Sorry. Can you hear me okay? Sorry. Just to go over, we're really excited. We have 2.5 counselors now, so we have a 3rd counselor now, a 9th grade counselor, Michelle Bollinger, which we're really excited about having. She already announced being part of the community, already reached out to parents and those students, so it's just nice to have that extra added support at the high school, so that's awesome. Just trauma-informed practices. As counselors, as you know, we're constantly going through professional development as well as our course training to be informed on this. Admin is really good about making sure that we have the support in terms of the trainings here in the Rogue Valley that we're made aware and that we're attending. Voluntold.
Yeah, so all of our staff just recently got trained on a new model that we're using in the district in general. We had Diane Berry, one of our really awesome mental health counseling supports, K-12, come in and talk about question, persuade, and refer. So just how we can step in and intervene, notice those small things that are going on with students. We talked about just what are those signs that we can look for, those subtle changes, and then how to respond to those depending on what students' responses are, but just being very direct about asking students about their mental health and if there's suicidal ideation going on and who we refer those students out to get supports, and just looking at under kind of like what school counselors do in general. The 3 big things they do is the social emotional support, the college and career readiness, and then the academic counseling piece, and all of that we know ties into how students feel supported at school, so it all does boost and support mental health.
Can I jump in real quick on that one? I think important to note too, with the QPR training, that wasn't just our counseling department. That was every student-facing staff member in our school. So all teachers, classified, everybody's getting trained in this model, so that, because when issues come up, we never know which adult's going to be there to deal with it, so we wanted everyone to feel equipped.
Yep. And then we have our Safe Oregon line. So that's just our reporting line. It's an anonymous reporting line. There is an option for people if they want to report specific details about who they are or they want us to reach back out to them, they have that option, but it is an anonymous reporting line that comes to all administrators and our dean. I believe there's some people at the district office as well that get those alerts too, that people can report just if there's mental health concerns, if there's any sort of concern going on campus that they want to report that they need addressed pretty immediately, and that's available to everybody. There's a couple things on here. We have Addie's Act, we have Aaron's Law. These are all things that are put in place so that whether there's like sexual harassment or child abuse or just how we deal with suicidal ideation and our response to those, all staff are trained on how we are supposed to respond to those. And then there's a protocol for communication around parents and what our obligation is to get students support so that they're safe in all of that. We have 2 student advocates on campus who... Student advocates?
No, just 2. Okay.
Everything's always changing, but we do have 2 FTE for student advocates. We do have one filling in right now, so we've had kind of 3 student advocates who have circulated throughout the school for various reasons, but they're to help with supervision of campus, making sure that people who are supposed to be on campus are on campus, helping to make students feel safe. They're often the ones that are noticing the day-to-day things with students, like somebody's not smiling today, or there's something going on in the bathroom, or so they're often the first ones to come to us and give us kind of a heads up so that we can check in with students. And they're also just there to listen and be a friendly face on campus, so we're really glad to have that resource with us. So Health 1. So for our Health 1 classes are like kind of personal health and family health classes. We have curriculum that we go over with students that specifically talk about the mental health issues that students are facing, things that adolescents are going through, trying to empower students to be able to support other students in identifying with peers. And we'll talk a little bit more about something else we're doing in our Tier 2 category. We have a school-based health center, that's La Clinica. Most of you know about them. They provide a lot of really awesome supports. We have 1.5 mental health therapists there that we can refer students to. So if we're unable to, as the counseling department, provide those supports, we refer them out there. It's been really utilized, so we're glad to have that resource to partner with us. They also do other things to help improve students' health, their physical health as well, so we know that that contributes to an overall increase in mental health because they all work together. We have a plethora of clubs and activities. I can't tell you off the top of my head, but there's like Dungeons and Dragons, and there's Lettuce Club, and there's BSU, and there's different student unions, and every student can start a club if there's not a club there that tickles their fancy. So we have a lot of really interesting and eclectic clubs to help students just get plugged in.
You really said lettuce?
Yeah, that is correct. We have a lettuce club. For all lettuce enthusiasts.
It must be a packed house.
You'd be surprised. We're at capacity right now.
Welcome to Ashland High School.
That's amazing.
We also encourage positive staff and student relationships. As a school counselor this year, I feel like the atmosphere has been fantastic in terms of connecting with students, not just in the counseling department, but as a whole. So that's been really nice. There's been a lot of friendly faces, including admin and teachers on the quad during passing periods to chat up with students and see how they're doing. So that's been fantastic. We do resource presentations for all grades, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, just about what we have accessible for students on the campus, whether you're a returning student or you're a new student. We make sure that everyone receives the same information, whether it be in the Grizz Academies with the 9th grade, whether it be in the theater for the whole grade. We make sure as counselors to give all the information to those students. So it's a really great way to connect with students. And a lot of times students like to remain anonymous, and they have the option to do the Safe Oregon or self-report to La Clinica, which is really great for those struggling and don't really vocalize, the concerns they're having. And then just we already went over the student advocates.
Are so great.
We put them twice.
Sure, yeah, so just moving into our Tier 2 supports, part of the thing that we're doing in those resource presentations, is giving students information and making it available about our youth crisis line. Just the other day, we had a student just like beeline it into the office knowing that they could utilize our phones. They were like, we need to talk to a peer, and so they called the youth crisis line and utilized the school as a way to like help regulate themselves and just vent, because it wasn't something that they could do at home. So that's an awesome resource that students just tap into, and so pushing that information out to them in the resource presentations is really important. We do restorative justice practices. And we do restorative justice as a tier 1 too, just in terms of like relationships and normalizing circles and just making sure that we have strategies for talking through our problems, or just like normalizing like, how are you doing today, or what are we doing in class? We also use restorative practices when harm has been caused. So we have kind of an intentional process, and it's an awesome tool because all parties need to be willing to participate in that type of circle where we need to repair harm that has been caused. But that's a tool that when we can, we love to utilize so that everybody kind of has a say in how things are going, and we can address what do you need in order to be able to move on, and it can be a meaningful experience, not just something that's punitive. We have outside agency referrals, so whether that's our school-based health center, La Clinica, we partner with Colpia, who provides drug support, drug counseling, and that's a really awesome resource too that we have that has been really accessible for students. And then La Clinica and Colpia also can refer out to other agencies like if students need further therapy outside of their scope, and we know that a lot of times with substance use that there are coexisting mental health issues that go along with that. So they really work hard to get to the core of what that is.
Becca, can you just remind me, when a student uses the La Clinica clinic, are they how is that paid for?
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons we really like La Clinica, because they really don't make cost be a barrier. They will bill insurance if it's a situation where students elect to go there on their own. 14 is the age where students can do that. They base it on a sliding scale. Most students don't have any source of income, so they end up not paying. And then if it's a case where it is a small fee, they also have outside grants that they use that cover those fees for students. So cost is never a barrier for students to access services. We have our yellow flag system, which is a really cool system that a group of teachers and our data team came up with. It's a way for teachers to refer students for any number of reasons, whether they have concerns around attendance or behaviors or grades, or just for any reason at all. They hear something like found out maybe a student has become unhoused or anything of that nature, they can refer it to our engaged care team, which you see down on the list right below. And so that's kind of like a multidisciplinary group of people in an intervention team that fields all of those yellow flag referrals from teachers. And so oftentimes we have the counselors there, we have an administrator there, the dean's there, we have our Maslow rep there, our school nurse, Erin, who's not La Clinica, but our school-based nurse, which is another resource there, so that we can all plan on how to support and wrap around that student and figure out where we need to get them to for what resources. Oftentimes different people from that group have information about the student, so it's helpful for us to share. Sometimes we refer out for, you'll see below that, an SST, which has been called like a student study team or a student support team, but really it's a staffing where we come together depending on who's appropriate for that student. Sometimes it might be the student and then the group of caring adults at the school. We want to partner with parents as much as humanly possible, so if that's appropriate, we have parents come in and really just plan some wraparound supports for that student with accountability and check-ins to see what their progress is. It might be that we want to refer them for a 504, so there's a lot of things that come out of that kind of intervention team.
And with the engaged team, what I really appreciate about it is we meet weekly, and we're very there's a lot of immediacy with the engaged team in terms of getting back to the teachers that posted the yellow flags. We make sure to respond to them by the end of the meeting. So typically we book out an hour to do this, to respond to all the yellow flags, how we're going to tackle the situation, let the teachers know so we can alleviate some stress. But if it goes over, typically it does, we just make sure to get to every single student that's on the yellow flag list. And we at least come up with a plan right then and there to address it somehow, whether it be with a counselor checkup, Maslow, or administration. We make sure that we're supporting them, and that they feel supported. And then we do an update the following week on Engage to see how it's going.
Is that like within 24 hours? Is there like a time? Did you say by the end of
So typically Engage right now is scheduled on a Tuesday. By the following day, we want to follow up with that student. Absolutely. Yeah. We want to follow up that student within 24 hours, I would
So
say.
like for the week, we get in those yellow
Yeah.
flags, and then from the 20, I guess it would be like 24 hours after that meeting,
Mhm.
we like to follow up with the yellow flag response.
The idea with yellow flags is that teachers are referring students who are showing signs. It's before it's like a red flag warning, right? They're starting to trend in the wrong direction. So it's a way for teachers to really put this on our radar so that we can begin to intervene before it gets to a red flag situation.
Is that just teachers that are doing the yellow flag referrals?
Any staff member.
Any
has
staff?
Any
Okay.
staff member, yeah.
We send out a weekly email with the clickable link and the QR code to all staff that are in IHS.
And how, can you give us an idea of how many you're receiving?
It fluctuates. On a slow end, it could be 5 to 10 yellow flags. On a high end, it could be 20, 25, just depending. But the ones that are on the high end, I would say is more of just grades, grade check-ins, getting them back on track with our graduation coaches, checking out their counselor, simple things.
Like, hey, a student hasn't been here in a week, and the counselor's like, oh yeah, they were out because they were sick for
Yeah.
this week, and we already know that, so we can at least communicate that back out with teachers.
Sorry, one more question. How long have you had the yellow flags system in place?
That's something that got started last year, but has been kind of in full effect this school year.
Okay.
I'm going to compliment our tech department on that too, because they basically built this system out for us. It's a digital referral system. And so our data team communicated the need. They built it for us. There were some bugs along the way that we had to work out so we could get kind of a feedback loop going of information. But it's been a pretty cool thing that we've been able to offer and build in-house.
So we talked about SSTs, so small groups is another thing that we've talked about. So like, let's say we have a group of students, and we also have at La Clinica, we have a drug and alcohol kind of support counselor, and so she's able to do things like assessments. So she might assess where a student's at and say, oh yeah, this is going to be more than the 5 sessions that I could do with a student. Let's refer out to Copia, or let's refer out for other services. But something that we've been working on with our dean this year too, and her, is having those small groups for like a group of students who maybe like are struggling with like vape use or nicotine addiction. How do we get them the supports they need because they're struggling with a similar problem? Same thing like when we see this uptick in like technology addiction or just really unhealthy behaviors around technology, having small groups that address some of those specific things for those students. And then we have multiple different types of risk assessments. This one that we're going to speak to right now is our Columbia screener, and that's something that in the district that most administrators, CDSs, school counselors are trained in at the high school. Our dean, our school counselors, our administrators, and then our school nurse is trained in this. Also, La Clinica has their system that they can do to assess. But the Columbia screener is kind of a one-page screener that we do with students if there has been any sort of concern reported by either a peer or a teacher, or maybe a student comes in and the way the conversation is going has us a little bit worried. So we walk through that screener with them to assess if they are at risk for suicide or suicidal ideation has been expressed. And then based on where they fall on that rating scale, we would plan next steps. Like if it's a high-risk situation, we might call JCMH, and they've been really awesome in terms of like their ability to do one of their full assessments over the phone with a student and do the safety planning and say, yeah, the student is safe to return to school with some specific safety planning, which we would do in a tier 3 kind of situation, or no, the student needs to be transported to JCMH, or the student needs to be transported to the hospital or needs some more intensive services. So screener is just kind of one of those things we do to gauge what the level of need is before we go into that tier 3. Okay, and so talking about our tier 3 support, so when we get to the point where we're looking at this drug and alcohol assessment, that's more like the fewer crowd, so we have that option available to us if we get to a point where a student has seen a therapist on a regular basis at La Clinica and maybe they need some like DBT supports and they're going to refer them out for more intensive counseling, then that's a tier 3 support. I already talked about this. La Clinica has the 1.5. They'll match our needs, so we're getting to that point where they're at capacity right now with their caseloads. And so we'll be meeting with them to talk about increasing the FTE that is available to our students through La Clinica. We talked about COPIA referral. COPIA is really awesome. Again, students and families can self-refer there, or we can refer them out. It's one of the things that we can do also in lieu of one of the more like punitive punishments. And COPIA just really communicates back with us whether or not a student is in compliance with the program. We have Jackson County Mental Health. We can both have students transported there, or they provide those over the phone assessments. That is more of a crisis situation, so that is a tier 3 support that we have. We do behavior contracts for students, so if we're noticing troubling behaviors or we are working with therapists, it's really helpful for students to know what kind of those boundaries are at school and where they can go. So maybe a student's leaving class a lot and hanging out in the bathroom. Okay, we want to get you those supports. If you need to break out of class, here are the places we can go to the counseling office, we can go to the school nurse and have those robust supports for students that is supportive. We have safety and support plans. So going back to mental health and making sure we're keeping students safe and making sure that everybody at the school kind of knows a plan if a student is re-entering after having some sort of like intensive stays in treatment facilities or hospitals or whatever the case is. We make a school-specific plan. Oftentimes we pull from the plans that the providers that they're saying or that JCMH does, but we make it really specific to school and work with the student and with the family around how to communicate. And then we have those reentry plans, and then also we have 504 accommodation plans. 504 accommodation plans oftentimes are for depression or anxiety or after some sort of event that's really impacting their mental health. It's for other things as well. It's for, you know, it can be for things like ADHD. It can be for some sort of health thing like diabetes or other things that are going on. But we do see a lot of 504 plans made to support students' mental health. So those are some of the supports that we have within our MTSS framework specific to mental health. Are there any questions?
I'm sure there are. With you. So one, I think I started to write it down and you were alluding to it, but just the capacity of the La Clinica counselors, that there's a waiting list is what I hear, and that it's hard to get in there. What is the timing on them increasing their FTE? Is that like a for sure thing that's going to happen? And if you were just being, you know, just totally honest about the need, would you ask for 5 more? Or, you know, they can only supply 1? Or like, what is the need?
Yeah, I mean, they supply FTE at the rate at which we can use it. That being said, it is dependent on their ability to then hire another person. So there can be a little bit of a lag between when their caseloads get full and when they're able to hire another person on. So that does exist. I would say that we just got to the point where we are needing more FTE, and so then they'll get that ball rolling in motion to get more FTE to us. But yeah, we do get to a point where students are on a waiting list. That we haven't had, I think, a lot of students on that waiting list. I know that at the winter break they reassessed and some students stopped utilizing services and they tried to get them in, so then that opened up some more too after the first semester for us to get students in.
I want to share too that and also compliment COPIA Counseling Services, because they have really developed this year as a strong partner for us. And so we've been primarily utilizing them for the drug and alcohol support when that comes up. But they have also proactively on their own hired additional counselors and expanded their services to include mental health supports. And so there's an MOU that's in process right now that would allow us to refer students to them at potentially no cost to the student. So it's outside of the scope of the La Clinica Health Center, but it's an additional resource, and as that's established, we'll need to figure out how those referrals work, which kinds of situations we refer to them, but it's an additional resource that's in development right now.
Great. So I have another kind of hard question, because this looks so robust and like we're taking such good care of our students, but probably one of the most common things I hear when I'm about town is what's going on at the high school, and you know, what's with the drug problem at the high school. That's been an ongoing reputation, right? So how do we reconcile kind of this services versus kind of either the myth or kind of the reputation, and where is the disconnect, I guess, between what people think is happening and possibly what's really happening?
I think that's kind of twofold. Just because we have all these resources doesn't mean families and students will choose to engage in them no matter how much we offer or refer to them. So there is that component of it. And Ben, you can speak more to this too. We've been doing things like hosting our drug nights to create some more awareness in the community around the resources that are available.
We have, there's a drug problem. It is at Ashland High School, it's at Ashland Middle School, it's in our community. And I think it really needs to be thought of and addressed at a community level. We are doing as much as we can and know how right now to respond to and be proactive about this issue. We've had the parent nights. We're developing really much more robust community relationships, because the problem is beyond our scope as a staff to just deal with on our own. So we're partnering with Ashland Police Department. We've consciously reached out to develop this relationship with Colpia and found that they've been very eager partners for us. Very pleased with La Clinica that they added a drug counselor, or I'm not sure her exact title, but Ashley's title, drug and alcohol counselor, so she can actually do assessments and do intakes and then have the ability to refer out if needed. But we face some unique challenges just because of the geography where we're located, some of the local economies that we have here. We have a university across the street, and we have an open campus. And there is really no way for us to prevent students from experimenting or engaging in some of these activities, but it's absolutely in our interest and to be as proactive as possible and train our staff about what to look for. So we've invited Ashland Police Department to come in during a staff meeting and share out what's in the community, what to look for. That's why we've been educating our parents as best we can about those same issues. It's a challenge, and one that we're not dealing with alone. It's across the state, and I think it's also an expression of what's been well documented as a teenage mental health crisis nationally. And so I think it's a confluence of issues, and it's complex. And as Becca pointed out too, we're developing these things, these resources and interventions, but it's challenging because oftentimes students that are deep into experimentation with drugs or become dependent aren't coming forward for obvious reasons to school administration or to teachers to get that help. And so it can be hard sometimes to identify who those students are, and then once identified, get them to agree to connect to the resources that we're trying to connect them with.
Also, one of the things we forgot to put on the slide and mention is a program that we have started utilizing, which is Sources of Strength. So our leadership students at the beginning of the year went to training for Sources of Strength, and the leadership teacher and the dean and our graduation coaches. I went there, but really it takes an upstream approach of trying to be proactive and helping students feel connected to their peers, connected to the adults, connected to the community, and start to empower youth, because they know more about what's going on with their peers than we ever will hope to know as adults. So helping them to pull kids into their circles and have those positive connections, and also identify some of those things upstream rather than us having that crisis response.
So it seems like the systems that are in place look really robust, like you were saying, Jill. You mentioned the issue of engagement, like whether the kids who need it are actually coming forward to get the help. Beyond like a parent education, which is the most important part, like what else are we doing to work on that culture and try and shift that to get more engagement?
Yeah, that's part of empowering our students that are actually in the school community, because a lot of times we do find out about those students
from their peers because they're concerned, and then we're able to kind of get involved and try to encourage more for those students to be engaged in services and wrap around them.
So how does a high school, I mean, and I've heard about this scenario, there's, a high school student who has a friend who's definitely using drugs, they're concerned. How do they do that in a way that doesn't imperil their friend or themselves, but gets them the help that they need?
A few different ways.
Yeah, there's a few different options to do that. So we highlighted the Safe Oregon reporting method that is anonymous, and we do get information that comes through that system. We also have a sort of a tip line, a text line. It's called See Something, Say Something, with the text number posted all around campus. And so any student can just text that number with information. We don't know who's sending us that information, but we'll act upon it once we receive it. So I think there's a few different ways that we try to do that. And we're also working with our health teachers to revise curriculum and update it, especially as the types of drugs and even the technology around drug use has changed so much, and it's changing so rapidly that needs to be updated pretty consistently so that we're giving students the most up-to-date and relevant information so that they can make informed decisions when they're in social situations.
And I appreciate that. And just to be really clear, are there pathways whereby the reported student isn't penalized, where they're given treatment and there's not a legal repercussion to their behavior? Yes, and we do that consistently. Our real desire is to change behavior and reduce harm as much as possible.
Hank and Kendra, any questions for them, or what do you see, or any thoughts? Like, did you know about all of these?
Yeah. I think they're well advertised and posted, and yeah, like they said, it's just the problem of getting those students who needed to reach out, because there's so many obvious barriers that keep students from reaching out, and I'm not sure how you would go about that, but I think the resources are definitely there, and so I'd like to shout out you guys. The resources are there, but it's about getting the students identifying it.
Would you say, like from your perspective as high school students, is that a shared awareness among your peers too, that there's support without penalty, like that there's a way to get help, or even just talk about the fact that you might think that you need help but not sure, but not have it come down negatively upon you?
I think there definitely is some stigma about.
Yeah, I think there's also one of the bigger barriers is people often don't want help. And
Sure.
It's like maybe you might recognize that you could need it, or recognize just the basic facts, but you have to want it to acknowledge that enough to actually go out and look for it, which if you're using any amounts of drugs in varying ways, you often just don't want to stop that. So.
And I mean, the other thing is peer options, and I know that's so fraught, right?
Yeah.
You've got friends of yours who you know are having issues. That's a tough one, right? Because there's a big barrier there.
And then you mentioned the what was it? The peer
sources of strength.
No, the student representatives for you guys. Touch on that, just like the students that are more in cahoots and know what's going on. I mean, that's probably also tricky because it's hard to find students that can access and have connections to all 900 students. But I don't know. I was also wondering, for your yellow flags, when that's reported and you check up, do you always check up on the student, or do you just go to the teacher, or is it just situational?
No, we check in with the student to
Every
figure out
time.
what's going on, and then just communicate back out with the teacher.
So with that though, that's a great question. So there's two parts to that. So when we communicate with a teacher, we're communicating who exactly is going to be a part of that team that's going to tackle that situation with that student, and then we act upon it. So, yeah, great question.
Dan, Becca, you have any questions?
Sorry, it's a little hard to talk from here. I just want to reiterate the importance of like continuing education with the number of drugs and the new varieties and combinations that are coming into popular use. I mean, I definitely hear what the students are saying as far as, you know, there are kids who don't necessarily want help. They want, you know, they want to experiment. They want to try things. So I think really educating people as to the dangers and constantly updating and reiterating what is out there is really important.
I just want to say I appreciate the La Clinic partnership, and I want to advocate for leaning on them as heavily as we can for any and all services they provide for behavioral health, including substance use stuff, because also that's outside funding. It's outside expertise and outside funding.
Just one last question. With is there a student, like a peer equivalent of the yellow flag system, where a peer can say, "Hey, I think my friend's like having a hard time at home or whatever, and could use some more support." And
we could create a system like that, but that would be more of that see something, say something line. That could be that anonymous tip of like, hey, I have this friend struggling. And a lot of students do come into counselors and share information about, counselors get the most information peer to peer about like, hey, my friend's really struggling.
Yeah.
Our dean gets a lot of information from peers, but yeah, they can either report to the state board.
Also our school nurse.
Yeah, our school nurse.
And I think that goes back to our other slide about that staff-student relation, you know, having that trust and a trusted adult on campus really does help. And then, you know, as counselors, then we get that information and we can resource and help the appropriate way for the student.
Advocates often get information.
Yeah. And one thing I do want to say quickly, I was a school counselor here in 21-22, post-COVID, and it was rampant with the risk assessments we were doing with mental health. And just coming back this year and having the school-based site like La Clinica and Colpia and all that, has really diminished the risk assessments that we're doing in the counseling department that I'm seeing personally. So it's been really effective. We've been very, very preventative, I feel, this year on the mental health side of things in terms of the risk for our students, and that makes me happy. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you for the work you're all doing.
I'm glad you're back, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to be back. This is home for me. This is
Good.
the longest I've lived in one place, and I love it, and I love our kids. So, yeah, we'll be there for them. So
We'd love to have you.
I know you do.
Thank you all so much, for all the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
I think that's it for me now.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ben. Good night.
Becca and Robert are dismissed. Thank you both.
Yeah.
It's a school night, you guys.
All right, shifting gears a little bit, actually quite a bit. I'm going to just highlight a few changes that are coming from the Oregon Department of Education that are causing us to update our graduation requirements policy. And trying to figure out the best. Okay, here we go. So I'm just going to lift the two primary changes. Everything else pretty much stays the same, but there is a change in language. So currently, the state requires 4 years, which for us means 8 credits of English language arts in order to graduate. The new change will move it to 8 credits of language arts. So it opens it up so that the language credit could be earned potentially in languages other than English. Along with that, there's a change in the definition of world languages. It now includes sign language and can potentially include English language development classes too. So I'll talk about that in a little more detail on the next slide. But in general, the idea is to be able to provide more flexible options for multilingual students to be able to earn either the language arts credit or world language arts credit, depending on their situation. So just a table here with some scenarios. So it's now possible for an advanced English language development class. This would be for a multilingual student whose first language is not English, so it's a support class to help them kind of bridge and be successful in their other classes. If the course covers literacy standards or aligns to English language arts standards, then it's possible for them to earn the language arts credit through this course. Previously, they could have only earned an elective credit for that. So kind of reduces the number of English or language classes that they have to take. Also for ELD classes, it's possible if the class is aligned around world language standards that a student taking that could earn world language credit as well, instead of just the elective credit option, which has traditionally been the case. We have in the past offered Spanish literature as a course. We don't have it this year. But for a student that takes Spanish literature under this new guideline, it's possible that they could earn a language arts requirement for that instead of a world language or just an elective credit for that. So it's really a case-by-case basis depending on what the student's credit needs are. Again, just allowing that flexibility. And then we definitely have situations that come up sometimes where we have students transferring to us from another country. And if they're coming to us from Brazil, for example, they already have 2 years of high school under their belt. And we see on their transcript that the language listed there is Portuguese. They've taken 2 years of Portuguese. We can now credit them 2 years of credit in language arts, whereas before they would have still had to get those 4 years of English language arts. And so just making it's honoring the language education that they've already had in their primary language and allowing us to use that appropriately on their transcript. Any questions about those? Yeah.
So just in terms of these classes, I just want to be clear that this is not just about language acquisition. This is about language literacy.
That's correct.
Right? Okay.
Yep.
So feeling that that they're going to walk away from a Spanish literature and language class knowing how to write a 4-page paper, whether it's Spanish or English.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. The idea with both of those, in order for them to earn that language arts credit in those situations, the course has to still address the existing literacy standards that our ELA courses are designed around.
Okay.
And then finally, this is already been in place, but the state is extending the suspension of essential skills through 2028. So an additional 4 more years. It's been suspended already 4 years. So by the time we get to 2028, that'll be 8 years of pause on essential skills. And then I'll be very curious to see what the state does with it after that. Any questions? Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks. And so this is essentially if you look, I think in your packet, Jack, is the actual changes to the policy there would be the first read of the graduation policy, which has just these changes directly outlined in it.
Oh, I see.
And that's the IK, that's the...
I believe it's IKF.
Okay. Okay. On to Scott, our most patient finance. Take your time, that'll give me a second to eat some chocolate.
One of the things we're trying to do a little bit better tonight is actually run the slides on Zoom, and here they're not connected, so.
The creme brulee.
Well, thank you, Board. This is the January 31st General Fund fiscal update. And so I want to maybe take it in a little bit different direction, although we'll have the same report. I want to respond a little bit to the concern that's out there with staff and I'm sure with the board and with the public about our budget situation. So I'll kind of do a brief update on where we're at. And it'll be brief because there's no real, huge change. Our revenues are coming in as we expect. The column in the middle kind of projects where we're going to be by the end of this fiscal year. Roughly bring in about $38.7 million in revenue. The bottom part of the report there lists our expenses. We'll be spending about $40 million this year. And so we're overspending by about $1.3 million. And what that does, you see at the very bottom of the yellow box there, it brings our ending fund balance to about right under $1 million, which is very low for a district our size. With our spending level, as you know, our school board policy requires us to maintain an 8% ending fund balance, 8% of our expenditure level. This brings us down to about 2.5%, so it's not a sustainable place to be. And so what do we do from here? And this is the kind of the quandary that we're in. We can't obviously continue overspending. So where does this leave us? If we do nothing and we look at next year, our expenses rise every year with inflation, with salary increases through cost of living allowances, heading into a new contract year with both of our bargaining groups. There's going to be some increase in costs. If we don't do anything about that, we're going to be overspending by about $2 million next year. Obviously, that will bring us, if we're looking at this as a personal bank account, we'd be overdrawn. It's not a place where we can be. So we're looking at, and this is what we're planning for currently with our lead team, with our buildings, and with our staff. We're going out to buildings and having budget discussions and presenting where we're at and how we got here and what we need to do to go forward. We're looking to reduce our spending by about $2.2 million going into next year. That sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money, but it's what we need to actually stabilize our spending. So we're not, as we go to next year, we're not going to take further steps to erode our fund balance. So the amount of spending that we're looking to achieve for next year is basically to help us get back to a break-even model. Unfortunately, we're going to need further cuts to start recovering our fund balance to get us back up to that fund balance position of about 8%. And at that point, then we'll have some stability going forward to just operate without this level of stress over the past couple of years that we've seen. Now, what we hear, and we do hear it, we feel it, you feel it, that it comes on the back of employees. The fact of what we're dealing with is that the vast majority of our spending in the district is on staff. We look at the spending levels here in the middle there. We spend about 85% of our dollars are spent on staff. And so there's not a whole lot else to cut besides that. The other spending that we do district-wide totals about $6 million. About $1 million of that is for utilities, so electricity, fuel. Close to $1 million on top of that is spent for substitutes and substitute services. A large amount that we spend for insurance and other fees, software costs to operate our systems, to pay for curriculum and all that. There's very little that we can cut to make any kind of significant impact to that deficit. We had meetings with our lead team last week, and they're building budgets that they have control over for office supplies and instructional supplies and everything. We're asking them to reduce that spending by about $20,000. That doesn't go very far in covering a $2 million gap, but it's kind of relates to the issue that everything is being looked at, and we do need to make cuts everywhere. So yes, it is going to impact staff the most. As Samuel mentioned, it starts with district office and district office administrators, but it does reach down to the buildings, and we do recognize that. So the impacts, we hope that we'll try to manage, and it won't be easy, but without making significant cuts, we're not going to be able to operate the district, I don't think. So that's where we're at. And I'll take any questions.
Just making sure nobody has any questions. I don't believe it. So.
Thank you.
I'm trying to
and so within the next couple of months, we're going to start our public budgeting process for next year, and it's going to be a challenge.
I know. I apologize for taking a minute. I'm just trying to formulate a question well, but I know for myself, with us going into RIFs, I want as comprehensive a picture as possible of everything,
right?
Including, I'd like to know the ideas that are coming back from the collaborative meetings, even the ones that don't work. So there's just as complete and thorough a picture as possible. As many eyes on the problem as we can get, I think, is both useful and our responsibility in this position.
Sure.
So beyond just the budget numbers, I'd like to know as much about the process as we can.
Yeah, I mean, I think almost like a board, we have a board retreat, but really we need a board budget immersion day where we're just getting absolutely all of the information to be able to understand the process and everything that's been looked at.
I was just going to call in Dan if you had a follow-up.
Well, just the follow-up is just, I understand and respect the difference between our role and operations. We don't actually, that's not what we get to do. We don't get to say it has to be this way. And I respect that. However, from our oversight role, I do want to know that the process is something that I can stand behind and support.
Right.
And then also just from our community relations role, I'm having a lot of one-on-one conversations with community members, with staff at all levels who are sharing their concerns. And I would like to be as clear on the process as possible. I'm very clear on the need.
Right.
I fully understand and support that we are not in a sustainable situation, and I'm willing to do the hard, unpleasant work to solve it. But I want to know that I want to be able to explain why.
For sure. Yeah.
Dan.
Thank you. I want to echo Russell here in that even when stuff is outside of board scope, it's helpful for us to have an understanding of what, when you're looking at all this stuff, what the impacts are just besides the dollars that are being cut. So I would love to see, along with proposed cuts or actions that are being taken outside of, that are operational, outside of board stuff, outside of board scope, impact statements that are broader than just dollars saved, if that makes sense.
Right. And one thought that's come out just recently is I mentioned just briefly we're start our formal board budget committee work in a couple of months, but it may make sense in this case to call back the budget committee earlier to start informal, bring everybody back up to speed about where we are, what happened since last budget committee meetings, and have a find some time. I know you guys have been very busy, but find some time to meet as a whole budget committee and look at some of this. So.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, again, kind of echoing earlier what Russell had said is, for me, we don't make those decisions in terms of what happens, but for me, it's the process. Is every, has it been equitable for the high school, for the middle school, for the elementary schools? How is that kind of pain been distributed? And, just getting a sense of that would be very helpful. I think Dan's got his hand up again.
Oh, Dan, go ahead.
I do. I know we have this at the top of our heads for everything, but it doesn't hurt to say it again. My interest would be in making sure that any actions we take on budget minimally or do not affect kids in the classroom. Mm-hmm. And so that we really think about kids first, students first on that.
Yeah.
As much as we can. Yep.
Right. I mean, to be honest, the caveat for that would be things that we've talked about, which is class size. I mean, we know we have a very, very small class size, and so the question of impacting kids in the classroom is not maybe super straightforward in that way, but it's important to have the history of our class size and where we're at now and having that discussion.
And is it accurate to say, I mean, we've overspent by 1.3 million. Is that correct?
This year, that would be the estimate, yes.
Yeah. And so 500,000 of that was this SB 819 that caught us all off guard.
Yeah, I mean, there has been added staff because of response to that legislation, yes.
And so 800,000 is what is kind of
there was a large increase in our insurance expense for property insurance coverage, and basically higher than expected payroll costs. Normal attrition for some of our classified staff groups, educational assistants, did not happen over the summer as we anticipated. So probably equally spread between additional staffing expense and just basically inflation on some of those bigger items.
Well, thank you for the work you all are doing. I know it doesn't help relieve anyone's anxiety about all of it.
No, it's hard all the way around. So
yeah,
so
yeah, we feel that.
What I will tell you is we absolutely keep kids at the center of it, and to do that, we have to focus on staff as well. But just for an example, on the class size piece, when we look at what we're considering in terms of elementary, you would have an average increase of about 2 students, which still leaves us with very small class sizes. Yeah. So.
Okay, thank you, Scott.
If we could, I'd just like to acknowledge Scott. Like, I appreciate the work that you're doing. And this is a difficult time to be in your seat, but
yeah.
I respect the work you do.
Sam, would you project that letter, or do you?
I can project it here. Hang on just a moment. Well, I'll kind of talk a little bit first. So one of the asks right now, as we look about how to address really this shift in enrollment and the financial needs, and start to really appropriately resource our schools and classrooms, we look first at what are the reductions that we can make that are lesser impact. So we look first at our temporary staffing. So folks who are only contracted for the current year and already anticipated that they would be moving on. We also look at leveraging any retirements that might already be happening on a natural basis, and look for some of those pieces. So those are, I think, going to be pretty significant savings for us when we look at those pieces. That said, we have some unknowns ahead of us. One of them is revenue and enrollment. One of them is bargaining. So, exactly where we are with that. So we are at a place where, as I mentioned previously, we're looking at about 2.4 administrators, which is a pretty significant chunk of administration. We've identified about 13 FTE in classified positions. Now, those were positions that came in and were funded under ESSER, and then we didn't see the natural attrition there that Scott had mentioned and we talked about. And then we also have to be prepared for, to reach the level that we need to consider additional RIFs if we are, or reduction in force or reduction in hours, both are under consideration. And again, this goes across all bargaining units. When we talk about the certified bargaining unit and doing a RIF there, there's a very time-structured process that's in our contractual agreement or our CBA, Certified Bargaining Agreement, with the teachers or the class or certified folks that we need to follow. And so the first step in that is looking at seniority of the staff, who's most senior and most qualified, because we have licensure things and those kinds of things to consider, and making sure that we have an accurate accounting of that and provide that to the bargaining unit, which we've done. So we have agreement on seniority. The next step is for the board to initiate a reduction of force process, which basically kicks off the timeline where we look at what reductions in the certified unit that we need to make. We enter into a 30-day at a minimum, or up to a 30-day, period of review with bargaining unit members to talk about it, to make sure we're on the same page, and then to notify folks. Obviously, if folks aren't going to have a position next year, you want to notify them as early as you can so that folks can plan. Now, one of the other things to be mindful, and there are other additional steps that follow after that, if a certified staff is reduced and no longer with us next year, if we have a position for them within the next 27 months, we can call them back and offer them a job based on seniority. We don't currently have a sense of exactly what the threshold will be in terms of the number of RIFs or where they'll be. We're doing that work currently. We're getting feedback from staff. We're getting feedback through surveys and through dialogue directly with staff, through each administrator talking with their buildings and kind of looking at those things. The bottom line really that we're looking at mostly is class size, where we have had significantly lower classes than we really can afford. And administration and classified in the education assistant arena. So what I'm asking the board to do tonight, and I'll go ahead and bring up this slide, is to initiate the RIF process. You're not committing to any specific RIFs at this point with our certified bargaining unit. And Jay was going to be here tonight, our director of HR, but had some other things come up. So you've seen the letter that he has and the motion that is before you. And then any questions that you might have.
I have a question, Samuel, which is approving a RIF study doesn't commit us to the result of that, correct?
That's correct. We're still going very much in process about where we need to go. And again, we don't want to RIF any more than is absolutely necessary, and it's something that we want to do surgically so that we keep a minimal impact on kids. We want to keep our programs for kids and our schools strong and healthy, and it's really about making sure that we're appropriately resourcing things and that we aren't over-resourcing some of the sites that have been over-resourced.
Can you just break down the next step in the process for me? So we approve this tonight and then...
So that, if you approve it tonight, that starts us off a 30-day time period where we've got the details of what we are proposing. We have a chance to share that with AEA and have some dialogue about it. They may have some ideas or sort of different thoughts, or we might have some questions about how do we sort out particularly nuanced seniority types of issues. And so we work on that collaboratively. Ultimately, district administration has to determine how much of the cuts we have to make and where those need to be. And, we have our guiding lights that we use for that. At that point, once we've made that determination, we notify people, and obviously the board will be kept informed throughout. Also throughout that process, we currently have, we're gathering additional information from sites about what their program priorities are, or their educational priorities. I don't think we really are looking at any programs going away, but we're looking at basically tightening our belts. So we're also gathering that information. That's going into lead team. Lead team is really looking at the way we're doing it is each individual member of lead team has been having engaging conversations with their staff. That includes our supervisor folks talking with transportation or maintenance and those kinds of things to say where can we reduce and where does it make sense. And the way that I framed it to them is our job is really to make sure we have a strong, healthy K-12 system that works for kids K through 12. So we're really doing that very collaboratively. We've gone through our first effort of work, and we have a little bit more gap that we're looking at. We're also looking at the feedback that we're getting from our meetings with staff as we go to buildings and through the survey. So, but the idea would be, in terms of time frame, that by early March, we have made decisions about RIFs and are able to notify folks prior to spring break.
So once this process is initiated, if we initiate it tonight, then it's proceeding. Like there's not another point of review before the RIF.
Well, there's a lot of review in terms of the direct implications of it, but that's an administrative or operational decision.
In the past, we would frankly almost routinely pass this.
It is a...
Yeah, because it just had to be, in case there was any possibility it needed to be done, we had to do it in this particular order, and it had to occur at a certain period of time.
That is correct, and it's not necessarily that, we will actually end up riffing. We may. We don't know yet to what degree, because there are a lot of factors that we're going through, but in order to be able to have that flexibility, the process has to be initiated.
Any other questions? I will entertain a motion.
In that case, I move to initiate the process.
I second.
All in favor? Reluctantly. Okay.
Thank you.
Motion approved. All right.
By the way, it never feels good. Even when we did it routinely, it never feels good. So I just want to say that. Yeah.
I will share, not that this is any consolation, there are states and districts where they literally lay everyone off because they don't know what their budget is going to be. And I'm very grateful that that's not the position that we're in.
All right, the board will hold a work session on Thursday, February 22nd at 7 p.m. on Zoom. The next regular session meeting will be held on Thursday, March 14th, 2024, hopefully with our chair, Rebecca, back in her chair, and beginning at 7 p.m. in the City Council chamber. A Zoom link will also be available. This meeting is adjourned.